So we want to give ourselves a power up that can create a shield on the player. So the first thing we're going to do is actually deactivate the shield that's on the player first, because we don't want that active in the game, because we want to test out picking up our power up. Then we're going to use an art file to use as our shield. I'm going to use this little kind of blue box here. We'll pop that into the world just there. I'm going to rename this as shield power up, and we're going to give this a circle collider so that our player can run into it. And we zoom in a bit, and we'll actually make this a little bit bigger than what it is. So I'm just going to grab the radius and extend it around this just to make it a little bit easier for our player to pick up. So we're going to make sure this is a trigger collider as well, because we don't want this to be a physical object. We want this to be something that the player can run into and not have to worry about. So we have our shield power up here. We've got it all created, but we don't have anything for it to do. So let's go ahead and give ourselves a shield power up script. More specifically, we just make it a power up script, because we're going to create a couple of other power ups along the way as well. So we're just going to call this power up, and we'll load this up in mono develop. And like I said, we're going to create a couple of other power ups as we go along, but they're all going to use this generic power up script. So we're going to need a way of distinguishing between them. So we're going to create a public bool that we'll call isShield, and that'll be our way of determining, hey, this is our shield power up that gives our player the power of the shield. The only other thing we want to do is we don't want a power up just to be left kind of floating in the middle of space, not moving. We'll make it so that our power up is slowly moving off to the side of the screen. So we're going to have a public float move speed for how fast it moves. And before we add the code to move our thing, we're going to do one other thing, and remember that if we're moving something off the screen, we want to make sure that once it leaves the screen, it's deactivated and destroyed. So we're going to use our function that we've used previously, on became invisible. And when it becomes invisible, we're going to destroy the game object. Perfect. Okay. So now in our start function, we have nothing that we need to do. In our update loop, we want to be constantly moving our object through the world. So we'll just say transform.position equals a new vector tree. So we only really want to be moving it on the x-axis. So we'll say where we currently are on the transform position x-axis. We will take away our move speed multiplied by time dot, oh, that's not the right thing at all, time dot delta time. And as always, we'll make sure that our transform position dot y is not changed, because we don't want it moving up and down, and our transform dot position dot z never changes. Perfect. So we've got it updating now. So what happens when our player actually picks it up? Well, we're going to use a void on trigger enter 2D, because it is a trigger box and we want to check when our players run into it. So we'll say collider 2D other, as we have a million times. And then what we do is say if the other collider that enters has the tag that is equal to player, oh no, not with a U in the middle of it. So if the other object is the player, then the next thing we want to say is, okay, is this power up a shield power up? So if it is a shield power up, what we want to do is have a way to activate that shield on the player. So at the moment we would need to try and kind of find what the shield is, but what we should really do to make it nice and simple is over on our player controller over here, we can create a reference to that shield. So we can create a public game object that we'll just call shield, nice and simple. And then we can hook that up when we go back into Unity. But then over here on our power up script, what we can do is say, okay, we know that the other object that just ran into our power up is the player, and we want to turn on the shield on the player. So we can say, okay, the other object that just ran in, get the script that's attached to it, which is the player controller script. And then on that player controller script, we can access the shield, because we just created a reference to it within the script here. So we can access that object on the script. So we can just say player controller dot shield, and we want to set that to be active in the world. So we can just say set active true. So all that'll do is, as soon as our other object enters the power up, we know it's the player because we've checked to see if it's a player. We know that we are a shield power up. So then we'll go onto the other object, which is the player. We'll get the component on that object, which is the player controller. Within the player controller, we can access the shield variable, and then we can say, okay, that shield variable, which is the shield object, we can turn that to be active, so now it's active within the world. So the next thing we want to do then after that is just destroy the power-up itself, because we don't want it to be there forever, giving us magical shields. We just want to destroy it from the world after it's been picked up. So we'll save that, we'll pop back into the game, we'll let it compile, and then we'll add our power-up script to our shield power-up here. There we go, and I'm going to click and drag that from there, like that. We want to tick that it is the shield. Our move speed, we'll set this to move nice and slow, we'll set it to 1.5. And then we're going to go into our prefabs and make our shield power-up a prefab. We're not going to delete it though, because we want to check out how it works in the game. So we're going to hit play here, and what we should see is our shield power-up slowly move towards us and then give us our shield. So it goes in, the player goes select it. Nope. Oh, we haven't, of course, we haven't assigned the shield to our player controller yet. That was the one step we were missing. So on our player controller, we've got our empty slot for our shield. So let's just slot that in there, and we'll try again. It should work properly this time. We'll hit play, and boom, there we go. We picked up our shield power up, and now we have our shield active in our game. So that's perfect. That's really good. That's really helpful for us. There we go. It just kind of saved my life as I was going there. But now, of course, I can actually do some damage to enemies. I can't hurt these asteroids, though. The only way I can hurt them is by running into them. Oh, no, that didn't even work. I just got completely destroyed myself. But that's okay. But there we go. We've got our shield power-up working very nicely. But we want it to be able to drop into the game at random points. We don't want to have to decide, hey, at this point in time, a shield should come in. We want it to be able to drop out of our enemies when they're playing the game. So let's create a system to handle that. こんにちは。